Hi, folks. This is Peter Boykin, and thank you for going right with Peter Boykin. I am running for North Carolina Lieutenant Governor, but today we're going to talk about a few things. Folks, I have a concern with what's been going on here lately in North Carolina and the United States. As I go online, I do see that people are having fun making memes about certain subjects of beer cans and certain jokes, and a lot of this is in a response to what's been dangerously going on, a trend of individuals who have mental issues, anxiety issues, and that leads to the killing of fellow American citizens, especially ones in a Christian school. Have you seen? So the outrage is there. But I have to remind people that individuals did this. Individuals did this. And while we complain about that, which we should have more complaining about that, we ignore other things going on, as in Donald Trump being arrested. I was going to do a whole podcast on that, but everybody knows about that. Time has passed. But we have a lot of concern with these types of things going on. So this podcast is going to talk a lot about the real things that we need to concern ourselves on, but not get watered down by beer and other subjects that really is kind of like what both sides do. We complain about so-called woke things. We complain about things that irritate us. It's easy to make memes and laugh about, but there are real serious problems going on in America. And if you want to keep your kids safe, I understand. But you can't make it where people can't exist. And some people might say, I'm not on the right side for this, but honestly, there's no right side except for the constitutional side. I believe in our Constitution. I believe in we the people. I believe in unity for all. And my campaign runs on literally life, liberty, and justice for all. Equal justice. So as we think about what's going on, the current events, yes, let's get outraged when individuals go out there and commit heinous crimes. But let's ignore the noise. Drag queen teddy bears. Drag queens with beer. It's funny, but it's really not that interesting. Donald Trump being arrested? Yeah. A president being arrested? Yes. Very important. But this podcast will talk about even more important things as they distract you on one side with the easy, low-hanging fruit. The more confusing things people don't talk about. And I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it. And they slip these in without you knowing. So let's address that. Thank you for tuning in. This is Peter Boykin, #GoRight. And here's a couple of topics we're going to talk about today. Digital tyranny inside a bipartisan Trojan horse. Joe Biden put someone in jail for sharing a meme. Yes, he did. Joe Biden has the IRS target a free speech journalist. TikTok to be banned potentially, but what about all the other apps? Artificial intelligence deemed dangerous as Elon Musk and other experts ask for a 6-month pause on AI advancement. We got that and a lot more. But isn't all of this better and more important than some transsexual in a beer can? Come on, you got to think about that. Now I think it's time for us to go right. We'll be right back with Go Right News. You can follow us on GoRightNews.com for more information. Hi, fellow patriots. This is Peter Boykin from #GoRight. Share this right now. Time to go right. Digital tyranny inside a bipartisan Trojan horse. Folks, I want you to listen to me. This is very important. Recently, a bipartisan group in Congress was working on a bill to go after TikTok. We'll talk about TikTok a little bit later in a separate article. But though anytime you hear the term bipartisan coalition, you should immediately be skeptical. Remember how everybody was quick to give Ukraine money? The complete Senate, 50 votes. You knew something wasn't right. Now it looks like our skepticism is warranted, just like in Ukraine. Here we are on this. Pay attention to this. Look this up. The Restrict Act. Restrict Act. It was introduced by Democrat Senator Mark Warner and Republican Senator John Thune. And it is co-sponsored by the likes of Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Joe Manchin, and Kristen Gillibrand, a who's who of the uni-party swamp creatures. Now, publicly, they're promoting the bill as a TikTok ban, and more broadly, protecting the U.S. national security for foreign enemies trying to use social media to interfere with American discourse. But if you actually read through the bill, it doesn't mention TikTok, not once. Now, what's really in the bill? To quote Tucker Carlson, it would give enormous and terrifying new powers to the federal government to punish American citizens and regulate how they communicate with each other. That's already dangerous as it is. Now let's examine. The first line of the bill authorizes the Secretary of Commerce, a Biden appointee, to review and prohibit certain transactions between persons in the United States and foreign adversaries and for other purposes. Now, whoa now. I thought this bill was to target TikTok and the Chinese. Now, why are U.S. citizens mentioned in the very first line? Because they're coming after you. They're coming after you. They're coming after me. Donald Trump is right about that. They're trying to go through us all. They're coming after us. Now, these quote-called transactions include any acquisition, importation, transfer, installation, dealing with, or use of any information and communications technology product or service. So any communication throughout the world. I article a little bit. I thought one of the best things of having the internet was to be able to interact with people throughout the whole world, to be able to bring world peace through communicating with people and realizing that the whole world is out there, and that we do have a lot more familiarity with people. They're no longer the foreign person we don't know. We have to deal with the media to go over there and kind of put whatever. We put faces. We know people from overseas. So this bill is kind of going to hurt with that. Now, the transactions, it's intentionally broad. The broader the language, the more leeway they have to abuse it. I mean, that is why it's so precise in our Constitution. That's why our Second Amendment says, shall not be infringed. If they didn't put things like that in there. The language is super important. Why do you think the liberals worry about grammar so much, right? Now, in fact, under this bill, the Secretary of Commerce is giving broad new powers to, quote, enforce any mitigation measure to address any risk to our national security. And I know we want to keep our national security in check. It's kind of like the Patriot Act, after 9/11. What do we give up to keep ourselves safe? So what more are we trying to give up? Now, what risks are they seeking to mitigate? Buried in this bill, it authorizes the Secretary of Commerce, in coordination with the relevant executive department and agency heads, to enforce any mitigation measure to address if someone is, watch this, interfering in or altering the result or reported the result of a federal election, as determined in coordination with the Attorney General, the Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary of Treasury, and the Federal Election Commission. So did you post about election issues in 2020? this bill is coming for you. And just because I talked about this, I'm not going to be able to post this on YouTube. So you will not see this video on YouTube. Probably. I'll give it a try. Now, where can they monitor you? Everywhere. It gives the Commerce Secretary power to prioritize evaluation of your desktop apps, your mobile apps, your gaming apps, your payment apps like PayPal, AI platforms, and web-based platforms. They even future-proof this bill, giving it jurisdiction over things like quantum computing, post-quantum cryptography, advanced robotics, and biotechnology. They will literally control your body and your brain if we ever figure out a way to kind of combine it. Now, what's the penalties if you're swept up in the digital surveillance scheme? Quote, a person who willfully commits willful attempts to commit or willfully conspires to commit or aids or abets in the commission of an unlawful act described in subsection A shall upon conviction be fined not more than $1 million, or if a natural person may be imprisoned for more or not more than 20 years or both. That's scary. Former Congressman Justin Amash, who we all have problems with, summed up this bill really well on Twitter. And he said, the Restrict Act isn't about banning TikTok. It's about controlling you. It gives broad powers to the executive branch with few checks and will be abused in every way you can imagine. And as if you needed more convincing, this bill was endorsed by the Biden regime. I'm no special pleader for TikTok, but this bill ain't it.
And for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. That order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign. And for the
So let's talk about Joe Biden. He put someone in jail for sharing a meme. We were just talking about the Restrict Act. We were talking about the bold powers the executive can have with a Restrict Act. But Joe Biden put someone in jail for sharing a meme. A man named Douglas McKay has been found guilty of election interference for posting a meme on Twitter during the 2016 election. McKay was a pro-Trump, self-described American nationalist with over 50,000 followers on Twitter, where he went by the moniker Ricky Vaughn. I think I spoke to this guy. In 2016, McKay jokingly posted a meme on Twitter encouraging Hillary Clinton voters to cast their vote by text. Quote, avoid the line, vote from home, text Hillary to 59925. Everybody knows these are jokes. But he got in trouble. It's kind of like saying, hey, Republicans, vote on November 4th. Democrats, vote on November 5th or whatever. It's a joke. Anybody in their right mind, do their own research. They know it's a joke. Now, the charges is the Department of Justice alleged McKay carried out a scheme to deprive individuals of their constitutional right to vote. McKay argued that he was simply trying to create a viral, funny meme. He also pointed out that Democrats were circulating similar memes, but were not facing penalties for it. Double standard, sounds like it normally. Now, the Department of Justice was not able to find a single voter who claimed they were deprived of their right to vote due to McKay's tweet. Now, the verdict. And here's why. A New York City federal court found McKay guilty of conspiring to deprive Hillary supporters of their right to vote. Now, his sentencing is scheduled for August 16th of 2023, and he could face up to 10 years in prison. And his lawyer says they plan to appeal the ruling. If you go ahead and put this Restrict Act we were talking about in, yeah, it's going to be worse than that. Now, you might be wondering, Why does this title of this article, why do we blame Biden for putting McKay in jail? Because despite this happening in 2016, the Department of Justice didn't arrest him until January 27, 2021, 1 week after Joe Biden became president. That's not a coincidence. It's just like how Donald Trump gets in trouble for something that happened 7 years ago. It's all political theater. It's going after political prisoners. Why do you think they treat January 6th prisoners differently than the BLM or the left who took over certain areas, the people in Chaz who took over? Because it's political theater. Pay attention, folks. The source of this is Politico, Post Millennial, and the Eastern District of New York. Why does it seem that every day I wake up and I see more of our world being torn apart? I'm starting to feel like Paul Revere, where I'm basically waking up everybody and saying, the bullshit is coming, the bullshit is coming, the bullshit is coming. Stay strong, everybody. Joe Biden has the IRS target a free speech journalist. Okay, folks, we talked about how Joe Biden sent somebody to jail for a meme. We talked about the Restrict Act, how it could jail you for talking about elections. So the federal government sent IRS agents to visit independent journalist Matt Taibbi's home on the same day he happened to be testifying at the Republican-led House Select Subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government. Isn't that ironic? Matt Taibbi famously offered some of the Twitter Files reports, which exposed how the federal government was colluding with big tech to censor American citizens, suppress the Hunter Biden laptop, and silence the sitting president at the time, Donald Trump. Now, the details. Taibbi, I might not be pronouncing his name right, but Taibbi, Taibbi, just for the record, revealed that on March 9th, 2023, the day he voluntarily testified before Congress, IRS agents made an unannounced visit to his New Jersey home. I wonder if those are those IRS agents with the guns, that they're teaching, the IRS agents to somehow be their own army. Since Taibbi was in D.C. at the time, the agents left a note instructing him to call them, which he did, and learned they were rejecting his 2018 and 2021 taxes. Now, the Wall Street Journal, I'm going to let you know, I've been audited ever since Obama was, every year it seems like I'm audited. The more political I am, the more audits you get. So I completely understand what this guy's talking about. Now, the Wall Street Journal points out that if the IRS wants to audit a person, it schedules a meeting at the agent's office. It doesn't drop in unannounced. Now, Senator Ted Cruz reacted on Twitter. He said, "This absolutely stinks to high heaven. The IRS has a troubling history of targeting the political enemies of Democrats. The IRS should never be in the business of harassing the American people." Now, what happens next? Representative Jim Jordan sent a letter to the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and the IRS Commissioner Daniel Werfel demanding an explanation. Will we get one? I don't know. The source of this is Fox Business and the National Review and the Wall Street Journal.
Let me burst your bubble, all right? China also owns Spotify, Reddit, Snapchat, and Nancy Pelosi's. Ta-ta. But sure, bitch about TikTok while living in your mom's basement, scratching your balls. What data? What data? Oh, little Timmy from Georgia spends 60% time bitching, 30% on corn, and 10% flicking booger and sniffing ass. What data? Wake up. Think with your own obese brain. Why haven't you heard? Morgan Stanley, Visa, Blackstone, and Ford bow down to China. Why haven't you heard? The real dance behind it all. But sure, TikTok dance is a national threat.
TikTok to be banned potentially. Now, we talked about earlier in the podcast, we talked about TikTok. We talked about there's a bill that's supposed to be out there that ends up not really restricting TikTok. TikTok is just a way to kind of get it in the door. But in reality, that Restrict Act is what we're trying to do. So again, we'll say a bipartisan coalition of Republicans and Democrats in Congress is calling for a ban on the popular social media app TikTok. Now, anytime I hear bipartisan coalition, it's immediately, skeptical. I'm skeptical. So should you. Now, let's examine. Now, what is TikTok? It's a social media app where users create short-form videos, most popular with Gen Z and millennials, and its parent company, ByteDance, is based in China and has documented ties to the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. Now, that's bad. That's completely bad. But, like other networks, they have the same thing. YouTube has the shorts. Facebook has the shorts. Instagram does the shorts. Everybody's kind of done it. It's so much that I start watching these tiny short videos, and I don't even know what platform I'm getting them from. Now, more than 150 million Americans use TikTok. Now, half of these are my accounts because it seems I can't remember how to log into half of them. And I get in arguments when Facebook, somebody said, they're not going to take you seriously. Could you put this on TikTok? And I'm like, but we're on Facebook, which is just as bad, right? But I try to explain to people, if you're using the tools in a manner that goes against what they want, then are you really helping them out? Or are you working against them? Now, why should we ban TikTok? There are plenty of justified concerns about the way that the CCP could exploit the app and target Americans. Now, remember, 44% of the U.S. uses it. They collect user data, they track location data, and they push political propaganda and dangerous messages. But here's a question. Then again, doesn't this sound like almost like every other social media app out there? I mean, Facebook? Come on, look at Facebook. They collect our data. They track our data. They track our location. They figure out if we're Republican or Democrat enough. There's a session and they figure out what your likes, what you do. Google Analytics figures this stuff out. They're going to start pushing ads on you. They do all of this. They push political propaganda, and they supposedly push dangerous messages away, but they punish you. They put you in Facebook jail for the wrong thing, completely out of context, and they're using AI dangerously. We'll talk about AI later on in this podcast, but they do this on almost every platform. Thank God Elon owns Twitter, and there's a few other platforms. We're really not using Truth Social that much. We're not using Truth Social. We're not using Gab. We're not using Getter. We're not using Parler. We're not using Rumble. We're not using BitChute. We're not using Odyssey. All of these that could be more for us, but we're not using. Now, the danger is basically, though, that with TikTok, the CCP has the power to request user data from ByteDance. But then again, didn't Facebook just get in trouble for selling data to China, or China released? Or every single app, every single thing we use somehow has our data leaked. Now, documented examples of the CCP abusing TikTok's U.S. user data. Now, last year in 2022, TikTok employees based in China were caught spying on American journalists, tapping into their IP addresses and accessing their private data, which probably our FBI does right now. Now, in 2020, the Wall Street Journal discovered that TikTok was tracking user data by using a tactic that was banned by Google. Must be bad if Google banned it. Now, the devil's advocate. Now, I'm no special pleader for TikTok or the Chinese communists, but it's important to take a step back and consider why a bipartisan coalition of U.S. lawmakers is suddenly invested in this issue. Probably goes back to the Restrict Act again, but also has to do with financial. The 6 largest U.S. tech stocks lost 35% of their value, $3.8 trillion in 2022. Meta, Facebook / Instagram / WhatsApp, parent company, was trading at $382 per share in September 2021. Today, it's worth $206. In 2022, Meta spent nearly $20 trillion. Meta spent nearly $20 million lobbying Congress to advocate for policies that benefit them. Now, it would be very beneficial to a struggling tech company if their number one competitor was banned by the U.S. government. We're just saying. I also seriously worry about giving the government the power to ban social media apps. Is it very close to being unconstitutional, since it is the government interfering with our free speech? Think about it. Source of this: Breitbart, Wall Street Journal, my personal opinion, Guardian, Statistica, and the Morning Star.
Yeah. Vote Donald Trump. 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 45, what's up? Vote Donald Trump. 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 45, what's up? It's gonna be a Donald Trump. Vote Donald Trump. Vote Donald Trump. Vote Donald Trump. It's gonna be a Donald Trump. Vote Donald Trump. Vote Donald Trump. 45, what's up? Big 45 flags waving at the dually truck. All red mega cap, boy, I got my money up. Ever seen a landslide? Red wave, baby. Trump 2020 got the streets going brazen. Everybody say they ain't rocking with him, but that stimulus check in their pocket ain't it. They wanna say Trump's racist, it makes me laugh. Joe been chilling with the Klan, that's big facts. You can't fool me, boy, you know I'm too smart. You can't.
Artificial intelligence deemed dangerous as Elon Musk and other experts ask for a 6-month pause on AI advancements. Now, we've been talking about in this podcast, we've been talking about how TikTok and the super over there, and how this is important and that's important, and how we want to ban this, and we talk about influence and everything like that, and China and everything. But all of that, throw that all out of the window if AI, like in the Terminator, somehow just takes over the world. So here's the concern. Elon Musk and other leaders of the tech industry penned an open letter calling for a 6-month pause on artificial intelligence AI advancements over concerns that it will pose profound risk to society. Now, over the last year, 2022, 2023, we've seen a proliferation of AI in our everyday lives. I use it to make different things, scripts, and the pictures that we use on Go Right News, and I like it, but I don't want it running everything. Now, from chatbots like ChatGPT to self-driving cars. Now, that's dangerous. Now, let's talk about the letter. Now, who signed it? Over 1,000 experts in tech, including Elon Musk, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, which powers ChatGPT, Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, and many more. Now, what are they worried about? Their letter, which warns that AI can pose profound risks to society and humanity, touched on several areas where they see immediate risk. Now, fake information. Now, should we let machines flood our information channels with propaganda and untruth? We're talking about TikTok. Now, for example, have you seen the fake AI-generated images of Trump being arrested? Should we let that be filled? What can we figure out the difference between AI and stuff? Like right now, AI is not really good with, like, they do extra sets of teeth. They don't know how many fingers and stuff we have. But it's getting better and better, folks. We have that deep, you got the deep technology where they can make your images you can't figure out. And you can, it's getting better and better. Technology is. We won't know what's the difference between reality and a simulation. Now, job loss. Should we automate away from all these jobs, including the fulfilling ones? Outpacing human intelligence. Should we develop non-human minds that might eventually outnumber, outsmart, obsolete, and replace us? And then there's the AI takeover. Should we risk loss of control of our civilization? Now, their action item. The letter calls for all AI labs to immediately pause for their 6 months at least the training of AI systems more powerful than GPT-4, which is the current model behind ChatGPT. It also calls on government leaders to step up and help determine what guardrails should be put in place. AI will eventually have the power to do more damage than a nuclear bomb. And we must treat it, it might use the nuclear bomb, and we must treat it the same way we treat advanced military weapons. There's a reason that companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon can't develop weapons for countries unless the U.S. okays it. Now, my concern is that our political leaders are too stupid and too corrupt to make these decisions. And they don't know about the internet. They're still stuck. It's so behind the Congress and everything. And what I worry is an AI system of like military for different countries that eventually puts us on a path for destruction. So are these AI smart enough to not destroy each other? Will they predict that the best way to stop war and save American lives is to not fight? Maybe they lock us out of our weapons. Maybe they destroy our weapons. Or maybe they do the opposite and decide that destroying us is the way out. We don't know. The source of this is Future of Life Institute and Newsmax.
So I want to ask the question, what did Trump do to deserve this horrible moniker of dictator? Was it lowering taxes? Yes, even for the poor and middle class. Was it the endless regulations he cut? Was it small businesses who were freed up because of those endless regulations? Maybe it was ending and starting the process to end the forever wars in the Middle East. Or perhaps it was the thousands of troops he had brought home first. Hard to send billions of dollars overseas when you don't have wars going on. And speaking of sending our tax dollars overseas, could it have been him also lowering funding to unelected governing bodies who attempt to dictate policy to the United States like NATO, the UN, and the WHO? Or was it the Opportunity Zone programs for impoverished neighborhoods? Surely dictators love helping the poor. Was it giving low-level non-violent inmates a second chance? Or fixing mandatory minimums? Maybe it was when he launched a worldwide effort to stop persecution of gays. Or appointing multiple gay ambassadors, or the first openly gay cabinet member. Perhaps it was deporting MS-13, or protecting our borders. Or his endless crusade against human and child trafficking. Maybe it was because he appointed more women to his cabinet than any president before. In comparison to Biden's firing of all federal employees who didn't comply with his mandates, talking over and over about banning guns and calling his political opposition literal terrorists, but Trump's policies are blatantly those of a dictator. All those manufacturing facilities he brought back, giving the poor a chance to escape poverty again, very dictator-like. Or maybe it was evening out our suspiciously lopsided trade tariffs. Or getting our soldiers' remains back from North Korea. Was it stopping the threat of nuclear annihilation from North Korea? Or when he gave musicians the right to their songs back so they couldn't be screwed by the music industry anymore? Could it have been approving terminal patients the right to try experimental procedures? Was it the record highs in our stock market, getting Big Pharma to match low prices abroad, or reaching energy independence for the first time in 50 years? What was it? He brokered peace deals all over the Middle East, recorded some of the lowest unemployment numbers in the history of this country. He kept gas in the $2 range and had next to no inflation for his entire 4 years in office. Donating his salary to different organizations every single quarter he was in. Once fighting opioid addiction, once fighting alcoholism, restoring national parks, and on and on. Every bit of this for free. And the whole time while being beaten down by the press, slandered in the media, and bogged down with phony impeachments, and now proven illegal investigations spawned by Hillary Clinton. He was in for 4 years, and he didn't do the horrible things they made you believe he was gonna do. And when you actually read the things he did do, every other policy freed up the American people. How could you call him a dictator? And all while currently sitting idly by while we watch the formation of a real dictator.
Folks, just a recap. These are important topics. These are the things that are not the low-hanging fruit. So as I brought at the top of this podcast, as we joke and we worry about small issues like beer cans and everything else, we need to pay more attention to the real stuff that's going on, the real stuff that affects our lives, right or left, currently, and if you care about your children, the future world of our children. And I just talked about this. So I implore you to share this, review some of this, look into this. It's a dangerous world we're going into. And it's not just because Joe Biden is running it, or for some people, Donald Trump. We've got a lot to worry about. And we've got to move toward the future without destroying ourselves. Again, I'm running for North Carolina Lieutenant Governor, and I have degrees in technology. I got 2 master's degrees in IT, which I haven't really got to take advantage of other than in the past. But that knowledge, even though I'm a little bit older and stuff now, that knowledge helps me see clearly about what's going on in the future. And we need a lieutenant governor that can see this and not dwell on the gray areas, but to see the future impact of what's going on with technology and build on that. So check out peterboykin.com, check out more about me, and reach out to me if you want to have more questions. Thank you for tuning in. Hi, folks. This is Peter Boykin. I am a conservative. I want to conserve our Constitution. I want to conserve our country. I want to conserve our way of life. I want to conserve our freedom. The principles of life, liberty, and justice for all. This is what makes our country what it is. So yes, I am a conservative. For some, I might not fit your definition, but that's the point. It's your definition, not mine. Life, liberty, justice for all. The power of one becomes the voice for many. Hashtag Go Right with Peter Boykin. To be a Republican and in the Republican Party. Hey folks, this is Peter Boykin and I'm running for Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina. I'm out here driving in the country, doing a little campaigning, and stopped upon this really nice farm with these really cool horses over here. Just wanted everybody to see while I'm out the wonderful country in North Carolina that we have. And I want to protect that as your North Carolina Lieutenant Governor. Vote for me in the coming election and primary. You can check out more about me at peterboykin.com. And every chance you get, go out in North Carolina and enjoy the scenery, especially in the better times of the years. God bless everybody. Do you like what you see? I will be running in 2024, and I'll need lots of support. The website is peterboykin.com. That's peterboykin.com, and it's updated. I plan to run a clean campaign, as we will have a lot of candidates running, and I just hope that money doesn't continue to decide who runs things in Raleigh or D.C. Our government should be ran by the people, and mainly by those like myself who can understand the everyday struggles of its citizens. Win or lose, I cannot just sit on the sidelines and comment. Running is activism. So if you have or you like the content that I've put out in the past, please help me towards the future. Let's hashtag Go Right with Peter Boykin. Thanks for listening to Go Right with Peter Boykin. Please like this post, and please subscribe and follow and share this podcast to all your social media accounts, and visit GoRightNews.com for more Go Right News with Peter Boykin. If you like what you hear, help support the podcast by donating. The link to donate is on GoRightNews.com. Thank you for your support.
Check out this news story and more on GoRightNews.com and the podcast, #GoRight with Peter Boykin.
Go right and register to vote. Your vote matters, so vote. Go right and vote. #Go right. Go right. Do right. Be right. Go right. Do right. Be right. Lead right. Think right. Vote right. Vote right. Think right. Lead right. #Go right.
It's time to join the Go Right movement. It is time to #Go Right for America. Join us at GoRight.us and GoRightNews.com. It is time for the Great American Revival, and it is time to #Go Right for America.
Thanks again, everybody, for listening to this, and please share it everywhere. Again, this has been #GoRight with Peter Boykin, a part of GoRightNews.com.
Every day, more than 2 billion people use a social media app called TikTok. Many of them are young people under the age of 24. If you had kids, you probably know already how TikTok works. TikTok lets users upload short videos. Usually they're under 30 seconds. What's interesting is that the content of these videos varies a lot depending upon what country you're in. If you're in China, where TikTok is headquartered, you tend to get more educational content. But if you live in this country, you get an awful lot of filth and propaganda tailored for kids. We're not guessing about this. We ran an experiment to prove it last summer. Watch. The TikTok that Chinese residents, children in China, get to see is very different from the one your kids are looking at here. Now, in China, where TikTok is known under a different name, videos like these are very common. Watch.
Legends never die. They become a part of you.
You know what American kids, your kids, are watching on TikTok? Stuff like this. Well, that's kind of weird. Can you see what's going on here? Well, China does. They run TikTok, and China knows if you want a productive society that extends beyond, say, next week, you teach your kids about hard work and creativity and personal responsibility, respect for authority. But if you want to destroy a society, you funnel a ton of garbage to kids about gender ideology and twerking. As the account Libs of TikTok has documented extensively, that's exactly what TikTok is doing here. There's a whole genre of videos of teachers boasting about indoctrinating kids.
I have had multiple students come out to me, not just with their sexuality, but also with their gender identity. It's one of the reasons I think it's so important to be out and loud and proud.
I teach my elementary school students about gender identity. Some people are girls, some are boys, some are both, some are neither.
I might tell this kid, we do have a flag in the class that you can pledge your allegiance to. And he looks around and he goes, oh, that one?
So it goes without saying that net, as they say, TikTok is not a positive influence on American society. And right now, in response to criticism of TikTok, China's government and the company itself are doing the same thing they did when they responded to allegations of a lab leak in Wuhan. They're saying anyone who raises questions is a racist. And they're doing that everywhere across the media. And they can because a lot of the news that you consume is paid for by TikTok. Politico, a completely ideologically corrupt organization out of Northern Virginia, has a so-called playbook that is sponsored by TikTok every other week. CNN, meanwhile, just put its tech reporter on the air to inform you that criticizing TikTok opens up Chinese Americans to, quote, hate and violence. If you criticize TikTok, you're killing Asian people. So, confronted with all this, you might support efforts in the Congress right now to ban TikTok altogether. And a lot of people do, not just on the right, but also on the left, which is kind of interesting. This is one of those weird moments where there's, or appears to be, some kind of bipartisan consensus. And that alone might want to make you pause for a second. If everyone in power is saying the same thing, is it really a good idea? Let's take a closer look. And again, this is not a defense of TikTok, merely an acknowledgement of what's actually happening in Washington right now. So one of the bills that would ban TikTok is being pushed, as we said, by senators in both parties. It's called the Restrict Act. Mark Warner of Virginia and John Thune of South Dakota, Democrat and Republican, introduced this legislation. Now, the bill is ostensibly about protecting American national security and ending, quote, foreign adversaries from interfering in our elections through apps like TikTok. Because, of course, election interference by Twitter and Facebook is no problem at all. But election interference from TikTok is totally unacceptable. Okay. But in reality, and you should know this if you're opposed to TikTok, as we are, this bill isn't really about banning TikTok. It's never about what they say it is. Instead, this bill would give enormous and terrifying new powers to the federal government to punish American citizens and regulate how they communicate with one another. For example, the bill would regulate, quote, certain transactions between persons in the United States and foreign adversaries. Now, what's a foreign adversary and who gets to decide? Oh, well, the Secretary of Commerce and the DNI, not the Congress, get to decide what foreign adversaries are. Well, that ought to trip a switch in your brain. And then the transactions with foreign adversaries would include, quote, any acquisition, importation, transfer, installation, dealing in, or use of any information and communications technology product or service, including ongoing activities such as mandated services, data transmission, software updates, repairs, or the provision of data hosting services. Well, that's pretty broad. Under this bill, if you engage in any of that with a so-called foreign adversary, as determined by, in this case, the Biden administration, that would allow the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, and the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, to decide whether you're acting in the, quote, interest of a foreign adversary. Again, that's another term that the executive branch, the Secretary of Commerce, gets to define without the interference of Congress. So if the Biden administration decides that you're doing this, then the Secretary of Commerce can then enforce, quote, any mitigation measure to address any risk arising from any covered transaction with any person or with respect to any property subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. These covered transactions can involve, quote, current, past, or potential future transactions. And the mitigation measures include, but are not limited to, throwing American citizens in prison for 20 years. Think about that for a minute. So you would be allowing the executive branch, the Biden administration, to regulate speech on the internet. And if you are somehow involved with a, quote, foreign adversary, or let's say you oppose the war against Russia, you go to prison for 20 years. So this isn't about banning TikTok. This is about introducing flat-out totalitarianism into our system. Now, just because TikTok is so unappealing, just because it's a creepy, low-IQ Chinese plot designed to make our kids trans, and it is, that does not mean that the people trying to ban TikTok have your interests in mind. Oh, it definitely doesn't, or America's. Keep in mind, these are exactly the same people who drained our strategic petroleum reserve and, in fact, promote China at every turn. Now they're telling you they're against China. They're not. This is not an effort to push back against China. It's part of a strategy to make America much more like China, with the government in charge of what you read and see, and with terrifying punitive powers at their fingertips. Now, we've seen this before from the national security state again and again. Confronted with a foreign adversary, for example, after 9/11, the federal government uses the opportunity to expand their police powers over the American population. And they do it under false pretexts, and they do it quickly by whipping people into a panic. Usually that's rooted in some truth. TikTok is bad, sure. Al-Qaeda was terrible, of course. But these measures are not aimed at stopping the foreign threat. They're aimed at controlling the American population, and they rush it through. And they do it so quickly that no one ever explains how exactly does this preserve American national security. Now, according to Sandy Cortez, we really quote her, Congress has not even been briefed on any of this. Watch.
Usually when the United States is proposing a very major move that has something to do with significant risk to national security, one of the first things that happens is that Congress receives a classified briefing. And I can tell you that Congress has not received a classified briefing around the allegations of national security risks regarding TikTok. So why would we be proposing a ban regarding such a significant issue without being clued in on this at all? It just doesn't feel right.
Okay, so again, in case you think we've gone crazy and we're defending Sandy Cortez, we should point out that she is a tool of the national security state. She's out promoting a war against Russia, and anyone who asks questions is an ally of Putin. And she's probably acting for motives that we find, well, abhorrent. But the question that she raises is real, and we want to be honest enough to say that. This may be one of those times, and they're common in Washington, where the solution has nothing to do with the problem, and in fact degrades our free country and makes it something unrecognizable.